If you pause the video of the NASA flyover at about 34 seconds, or the 5-minute 21, you'll see this cliff is very important. You'll see that rounded object there I've zoomed in on. I'll process pictures, and what you see here is like a little T-shape caught right there, and that's a perfect square ledge. There's some rounded objects there. There's a rounded object there, one little object coming off, and looks like a square window there, and a rounded entrance there as well. If you look down here, it looks like an igloo, so you've got those rounded holes there as well, and that's a square object coming from the top. So these are very strange things to actually see. And this looks like a step-up process here. There's a square object there. Now I'll just return this to about 33 seconds where it flies over. And this is where very important stuff comes in. I'll just take this back up. If we look at here, we see those objects there which we've seen before, and the giveaway is obviously how that climbs over there. It's like some sort of elevator, or I've zoomed in on that object there and that one there. Now this is where it gets strange. It looks like a rounded like object right there, and some structures there as well. If I progress a fraction further, it's the first time I actually notice there's an object right there. Let's just change this, that's better. And the strange thing is, if you look at there, there's what looks like a perfect excavation. That's a square shape there. Looks like windows there. Now this is where I saw the first time what looks like pincers on this side, and you'll see square processes there as well. Now I just advance it by about 1 frame. That's usually all it takes. And that object there as well looked unusual. Now that object going straight up is unusual as well, because that comes over there. And this looks like a square on that side, and actually a triangle shape right there. And if you look at that, it's a perfect drop down. It's more squarish. Now I'll try to lift this frame up very gently so I won't lose the actual video, and I'll try to just take it forward now 1 step. Okay, I missed it. Just let me pause it. If you look at that area there, it just seems like a perfect square shape right there as well. The rounded objects go there as well, and there's a trail that leads further down. So I'll just go forward. Okay, this is where we first start to have these things popping. I just advanced it 1 frame, and you see those rounded hooks coming off, the excavations there. That's a perfect square. There's activity in this area as well there. Now this is unusual, you've got the step form happening, so let's advance it 1 more spot. Okay, let's start again. Let's go over this again as it reaches that area. Now this is where I'll start to pause it. So that's the first time we see the objects there. We'll just go a step. We see that very peculiar object, and I've zoomed in to show these like hooks or pincer shaped objects there. You'll see the square excavations there. That object goes up. I've zoomed in on that object there, and we'll just go a step forward. This is that important area we're just trying to go over quickly now. This is where that rounded object comes in that I'll zoom in on as well. And I'm just trying to get a fraction past that. There it is again. I've zoomed in on those step up formations right there. There are things happening on that hill which I'll zoom in on. That object there was obviously bizarre. Now this is where I saw for the first time It looks like a pyramid type shape, which I've zoomed in on the photos. That's unusual too. We've got like square openings right there and look like walkways. And that there to me look like an entrance right there. And there's a very strange object there. Now, there's a strange object there as well. This looks rounded. But here we see for the first time looks like two towers. It's a wing shape and it's like a wasp nest. It's very unusual. You got all the layers coming down. And it's got a dome which is red-like on film. It's a sort of a sphinx front to it. That's a cylinder. It narrows off, and as I go one step more forward, you'll see what looks like those twin towers coming up there. They're very hard. I'll have to zoom in and take separate pictures. And here we have interesting step-ups and squares happening right there. There's an object right there on the hill. That's a round object sitting there. I'll see if I can capture that and freeze it. There it is. We've just frozen it now. So it's like a twin tower system coming up. There's a dome, and there it goes step down. There's a huge object there. Looks like side windows or openings up there. Now I'll see if that's an accident, that square that's popped up, or it's just part of the film. So I have to be careful how to interpret the film, obviously, but that hasn't changed there. And you see the individual round white domes there. It looks like a square little building there, then this larger building type object here, but that does not change. In the film I've zoomed in on that object there. It's very strange. It's rounded there. It seems to be a leveling out there. It's got like side openings on the side. But that's got a huge a dome in the front. It looks more square-like at the front. And that does not change in 4 or 5 frames. And I've zoomed in on that. It is very specific. These are more images of part 2 of this video. So these are the objects right at the start at 33 seconds. That's that object right in front that just looks, that was my first indication. Something's very strange. And you got that step up happening there, like a perfect triangle, what look like openings there, or apertures. There's that object further to the right. We'll just quickly go through these, and there are these objects that seem to go over the actual cliff edge. Nothing special, but when all these things appear in one spot, it's a little bit abnormal. So you've got that object there. I'll try to zoom in. It's very hard to get a very clear shot of what's happening there on the ground, but that's the best I can do of the things I've got. There it is again. There's that object. Things behind it, that triangular shape there. There's that triangular shape. That was out in the far left. It just looks like it's a perfect type shape. That was in the front. These are bits, they don't look like they're just normal film aberrations, especially that little pointed area there. And I've seen quite a few of these same things on the moon as well, other spots, especially that object coming off and that object going down there. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. There was that rounded tube object. There's plenty of tubes appearing, and I don't know if they're for transport or just a building type. So this is a larger type picture of what's happening. You've got that object right there. There we go. That's a clearer zoom. The object there in front, climbing up, and here's where we see something strange. I've actually zoomed in on there. It's like an object there with rounded pincers there, and these perfect square excavations, which I've zoomed in on. So that was unusual to find that down there. On its own, that shape there is very unusual. Then that white object there and that small object there. There's a perfect zoom of what looks like a, look at that. That's a perfect square slab. That's like a round pincer shape to that long object. And I've got the next picture of the other side. That's a perfect square. These are like perfect excavations down there. So I'll go back to that one. That's one side of it. That's the other side. Try to zoom in on that. It's very shiny and it's very right angle shape there. And that's the other side. It just doesn't look like accidental shapes. Look at that. Okay, let's go again. There's that whole shape there. Look at that. And it's got that perfect square area next to it. That excavation right there. And those perfect squares right next to it. That one goes up and over. There's a strange object there as well. There's that same object. That was the one on the left. It just looks like there's a square opening there and other small structures there as well. And that straight object. That's the closest zoom I could get on that. I really don't know what that is, but again, it looks like it isn't accidental. Sorry for the quality of the video, but that's the best zooms I have with the very raw footage from 1969. I'm sure they got clearer footage, but they don't want to show us it. There's the object there. And what looks like openings on that side. There was that object again, that excavation, that thing that pops up at 90 degrees. Again, that's that thing in the front. It's a domed, then you've got an object behind it, and there's a square thing on the platform there and a tower there. Let's see if I can zoom in and get some more detail, but it's very hard on that one. There's that rounded object. Well, it looks like some excavations, a square, a tunnel system right there. That's on the cliff, and that looks square, and there's a T-shaped object right there. There we go. That's unusual. That's at the foot of a cliff. You've got that rounded object and the object on there. That's, I can't get any closer zoom. That's the best I can do. And you've got that, a dome there, or archway. Look at that. There's that T-shape and that perfect ledge right there. I couldn't get that T-shape. One side's lighter, the other's darker. There's that rounded object, the ledge, and one other object there. Some more, what looks like excavations in the rock and openings. Especially that one there. They've all got these like supports in the center, look like pillars. So I've seen that pattern in quite a few pictures. This is interesting. It looks like openings or windows. This is that pyramid shaped object, and I've zoomed in on that later. It's red, it's got a white area upon there, and that's on to the right of it. You've got those twin towers. They look like wasp nests coming up really high. If you just look at that, it just doesn't look like it's accidental. That there's that dome, it goes up, step up, next one, black area. There it is there. That's what I'm trying to show you. That's the area we're looking at, and then you've got this, looks like wings on top and a tower. It's like a wasp nest. It's very unusual. There it is again. See if I can zoom in on it. These are very hard pictures to zoom in on, but that does not change after 4 or 5 frames. It's constant. There was that object on the left. It's rounded, it steps up, and there's a pathway that leads down, which is like a perfect rectangle. That's why I thought that's very unusual for that perfect rectangle shape, and then it steps up. If you just look at that object, it just doesn't look like a rock. It's too much structure happening there. Then you've got the step ups there on the cliff as well. Just take it back down. There's that object again and the towers. That's a fuller picture. Very hard to zoom in on it. There it is there. It steps up. One white area, one white object there. There's the top of the cliff, and there are those twin tower type objects. One other image of it. And here I've caught it in a red sort of a colour. Again, that one's hard to zoom in on. There it is again. The redness, the twin towers, the object there. Here's a clear, it looks like a wasp nest type of, it goes straight up and you see the openings on top. It's got like two wings to it. Again, very hard to zoom in on.